Okay, y'all, this has been way long overdue, and I am so sorry that I have been like supremely late with this whole thing about putting like a video together from last month. Um, Lots of things happening in my life. One has been it's been kind of challenging for me as as a parent. It's been I've also been super sick with the flu, and then we had the holidays happening, and it's just been crazy to try to get things back into like a normal routine ever since I've been feeling better. So I feel bad for creating all of these excuses and all these reasons for things that have been happening, and I'm really sorry that I haven't had a good time to be able to kind of put this together, especially before I was actually sick. But now I'm ready to be able to kind of move forward again, and ready to be able to kind of be able to do these things with you. So back last month, we had our little session. Um, we had like our little bit of our class for lesson number 3, and I called it the people in your life. And it's the kinds of people that you know about. It's not going to be about the different jobs because there's way too many. I'll probably use that for kind of like a different video for maybe later in the future. But wanted to kind of at least give like 3 different categories. So the first one is going to be the kinds of a person. This is person or people. People. You will notice that I kind of will be shifting my body from one subject to another, especially when it comes to like male and female, or like 2 different ways to describe it. It makes it easier to understand if you kind of shift your body. It's just slight. So for like person, I kind of have my body shifted at one side, and then people to the other, just so that you know these are 2 different topics. Okay. So I'm going to be using that pretty often with these types. So the first topic is about like a type of person or people. The second one is going to be about the different family members. The third one is going to be about relationships. Okay, the kinds of relationships that you may be able to see in our world for today. All right, so first get started with type of person or people. All right, so we have first is man and woman. Okay, so anytime that you actually see, notice in sign language, you'll be able to notice that a lot of like male roles are towards the top of the head where it starts. Towards the top of the head. And it's not like on the top, it's kind of more towards like the forehead kind of area, like kind of by just above the temple, like up here, kind of where your brain is. And then for female roles, it's towards the chin. So you start with the chin, and then you go towards then kind of like it kind of goes to wherever it ends with, either like at the sternum or down here in your signing space, or wherever it will finish. So we'll start with man. So you have your hand here, thumb at the forehead, and goes down to your sternum. So this is man or male, and then this is woman or female. Okay, and then boy, top, boy, like this, like you're kind of grabbing at a baseball cap. Boy, and then girl is with the thumb, like kind of like the letter A, but the thumb is kind of out, and then you kind of drag it down your kind of jawline. So this is girl. So we have boy. Okay, this is the other side, and then girl. Okay, and then we have baby. I've seen baby used 2 different ways. One is baby here, kind of like when you kind of hold a baby and you want to burp them, you kind of like pat them. So this is kind of like kind of like snuggling a baby, like baby. I've seen baby here. Or I've seen baby like this, where you're kind of rocking the baby. And you can do this if you're going to be describing like how you help the baby to be able to go to sleep. So like rock, 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 rock. But for actually just discussing about a baby, it's just very nice and gentle rocking. All right, so next we have child. Child. This is child. So it's like you're kind of like putting your hand on top of the head. So this is child. And then children is kind of tapping all the heads. So children. You can say probably, especially for me, I have 2 children. But maybe say you have more, maybe like 4 or more. You could say children. So you just kind of tap as many heads as you please. All right, so now we move on. So when child starts growing up, this is sign for growing up. So we have there's a kid. So it's like hardcore, but it's kind of down under the nose, kid. And then we have teen. It's the letter T, and then you point it kind of like do the sign for head. It's T, teen. So this is teen. Adult. As a teen grows into an adult, I've seen 2 different ways. I've seen where it's like teen, but with the letter A for adult, so like this, adult. Or it could be child grows up. Okay, so this is kind of growing up, and then this is from a child goes into an adult. All right, so like your hand, like the top of the head of the person that's growing up is kind of like child, where you have the hand on top of the head. But with adult, it's kind of like up here at like your level with an adult. If you're a kid that's doing this, it would be like this. You kind of put like that's an adult kind of thing, because you're about the same height as a child. So child would be here for you, but an adult would be like way up here. All right. So then you have friend. This is friend. Okay, you just kind of tap it around. You can link it if you want to. You can tap it like this. So whichever way you can do. If they are a close friend, you can do something like this. You link it really close, like this. Close, my friend. This is close for close friend. And then your best friend is really tight. This is your best friend. And then sometimes there are people that live next to a neighbor. All right, neighbor. So this is the sign for close, and it's adding person. Okay, so you're kind of like meshing it together. So this is your neighbor, and you have, maybe like me, I have many neighbors. Okay, so you just kind of this is one neighbor. This is many neighbors. Okay, do you understand? The plural is kind of more than one, so you add the different people. Okay. And maybe there's people that you just don't know, and they are a stranger. Okay, that's strange. Like you're just not sure. Stranger. That person's stranger. Okay. Some examples you can use these types of signs for. Like for instance, I can say like my best friend. Her name is Ashley. Okay. Or you can use whatever name that's best for your situation. But that's a good example sentence that you can be able to use. For me here in my little town of Brillion, I can say that my neighbors are all nice. Okay. You can use if it's for like neighbors or people that you know, you can describe about them. Maybe that you actually have a neighbor who's grumpy, like to get off my lawn kind of attitude. So however you wish to be able to kind of maybe describe like the person in general. Or you can even ask like the question like who is that man over there? Do you know? So those are actually some good example sentences that you can use. So that's finished for the first part about like the different person or people. So the next one is about different family members. So in your family, you have come from a long line of generations. This is also ancestry, so generation. So you start here with like your dominant hand. For me, it's my right hand. So it's kind of started at their dominant at that side for the shoulder, and then you just kind of like leapfrog it over. So this is every generation, and then in your family, this is family. So you're just taking your F's and just kind of making like you're kind of making the shape of a ball around it. So go from thumb to pinkies. Family, and in your family, you may have hopefully a normal family. You have dad. So I've seen two different ways of doing this. I've seen where you can tap the thumb tap the thumb, or you can wiggle the fingers for dad and mom. Okay, so dad over here, mom over here. So you can tap it, or you can wiggle the fingers. And then these are your parents. Parents. So it's kind of combining both dad and mom together and add that to make parents. Okay. The second one is for being a husband, or a wife. If you're married, okay, so it's being married. Excuse me. And for a husband, it's kind of like making like a C shape towards the top of the head and kind of come down here, kind of like your, ooh, yay, congratulations. Kind of like husband, and then wife is down by the chin. Okay, wife. And maybe in your family you have a brother, so it's kind of using like hand shape of number, like kind of like L or the number 21. So your dominant hand is towards the top, and the other hand is towards the bottom. And so you take dominant hand down, brother. This is brother, and then this is sister. And you combine the two for siblings, or brother, sister, or you can be able to show how many brothers and sisters you have. We'll use that as an example sentence. And then these are your siblings. So if you have siblings, can be used if you have like brothers, sisters, brothers and sisters. So it's kind of the same universally. If you actually have children, you can either have a son. So down here, dominant hand up here, kind of like when we did baby, but just keep this hand down here. This is your son. So it's kind of like coming down here, and it's kind of meeting right on the top. And this is daughter. Okay, so it's son, daughter, sons, daughters, sons and daughters. That's how you would work that. Maybe you yourself are a grandpa. Okay, so this was dad, and this is grandpa. Okay, and the same thing, grandma. And if you wanted to emphasize, and if you were a great grandpa, you would say great grandpa. So it's like every bounce is like a kind of like adding the generation, like great grandpa, great grandpa, if that makes sense. So the bounces are used for the greats, for the generations. Maybe if you were describing like way back of different stories that you would tell about your great grandfather, you could be able to use that. The only thing is that if you are a grandparent, if you yourself are a grandparent, you actually have grandchildren. And it's funny how that this is great, but you actually have to fingerspell grand. I don't know why that is the case, but I'm just kind of following along. Maybe one day it'll kind of change, but as of right now, we have to fingerspell out grand. So Grand, children. Okay. You can say grandson, granddaughter, to be able to emphasize with that. And also for the grandchildren. If you have someone in your family who is, you can say that they are a relative. So just like friend, but use letter R's. Relative. Relative. You also may have an uncle. It's the letter U. And you kind of make like little circles at the top. So uncle. And then aunt is the same way for A down here. Aunt. Aunt. Uncle. Aunt. Okay. You also can say that you have a nephew. So letter N. Up here, you kind of nephew. Or you can wiggle it. You can circle it or wiggle it. And niece. Nieces and nephews. You may actually have some cousins. Cousins I've seen where it's more general, kind of like both. If you were not being specific, so you can say cousins, kind of like towards like the temple, cheekbone area. So cousins right here, because it's not quite male, not quite female, so you can do in between here. But if you were talking about someone specifically, you would maybe like say, for instance, for me, I have a boy cousin named Kevin, and his sister, my cousin's name is Rachel. Okay, so Kevin up here, Rachel down here. So you may also have, if you are married, you may have some in-laws. Okay, so this is the letter L. This is the sign for law. But you would be using this after you would be signing the different family member kind. So, for instance, you can say that I have a mother-in-law. Okay, and you can describe about her, hopefully in good and positive ways. If you have kind of like a mixed family, like say your parents have been separated, divorced, and maybe later on got married again, you may say that you have a step parent. So the sign for this is kind of the word next, N-E-X-T. So it's kind of like the 21 shape, and you kind of next. It's kind of like flipping it over. Next. So this is step, and then you would add that to with a family member. So you can say step dad, step mom, step brother, step sister. Okay. If you were to take care of a child that was not your own, you would say that you would foster, and that sign for that is to care. Okay, so the care is with using the letter K, is kind of ironic. So you kind of put one K on top of the other, and kind of like stirring the pot, or kind of like rowing, like paddling a canoe. So this is to care for someone. Another one is to adopt. The sign for that is to take up. So you'd say, I adopted 2 children. So this is adopt. If you have, if say for example that your parents actually married again, and they actually had a child to get together, that would be your half brother or sister. So a half sibling would be the fraction. It's actually a fraction. So 1, 2, numerator, denominator. Okay, so it's 1, 2, half brother or half sister. Okay. If you were born on the same day as other children, you would be considered a twin. Okay, so this is 2 because So for two kids to be born on the same day, that's a twin. 3 is triplet. 4 is quadruplet. 5 is quintuplet. So you get the idea. So you just kind of keep going up if you were involved in a family just like that. Okay, so you can use a lot of different example sentences for these kinds of signs for your family. Like you could describe about your family in particular, or you can describe about someone else's family. Like my husband, he has his mom and his brother. Okay, his dad passed away before, and his sister passed away before. It was a very sad time, yes. But we still have the family together, and that's still wonderful because we have times to be able to FaceTime on the phone, to be able to actually see each other, and sometimes we have a tendency to look at our nephews. So you can use that. That could be an example sentence you could be able to use. So what about your family? How would you describe your family? See if maybe you could be able to give that a try. All right. Okay, so the next one is all encompassing relationships and kinds of relationships. Okay, so this is the sign for relationships. It's like you're linking two F's together. Okay, like the magician's trick with the 2 rings. They were trying to get them unlocked. So what you just kind of sway inside, just slightly side to side. So just relationships. If you were single, you are an individual. So just kind of like twin, but just with one. Single, individual. This is single, and then this is individual. So it's like person with the letter P's pointed down, but individuals with I's. So that's kind of down with that. But you can say single. You can say maybe you're kind of crushing on someone you like. So it's kind of like white, the color white, where you kind of pull all the fingers out, but this time it's only with the thumb and the middle finger. So it's like. Okay. You can also say that you've been a little bit flirty. So thumbs and palms down, thumbs together, and you just kind of wiggle the fingers and kind of get all devious looking, I just been flirty. And maybe later on, maybe you guys decide to get together and you start to go dating. This letter D's, and you kind of point the other fingers together, kind of like little kisses. So then they become your boyfriend or your girlfriend. All right, so it's just adding it together. So boy plus friend or girl plus friend. Okay. If they become someone you really like, maybe they become your sweetheart or your babe or your boo or your honey boo boo, or however you want to describe your significant other in a very sweet way. And sometimes you may fall in love. Okay, so your dominant hand is up here, so this is you, the person, and then this is the ground that you fall on. So you're falling in love, you really emphasize it. You're falling in love. Oh. You may also become a couple. So it's number 2's couple or partner. Partner, same thing. And maybe you might be going together. Okay, so the letter A's, and you have the fingers kind of come together like this. So this is together. And this is the universal sign that you'll probably see me doing a lot. I like doing this with my kiddos and say, I love you. So it's like the letter I, the letter L, and kind of the U, even though this is you, but I love you. Okay? This is I love you, and this is love ya, love ya, love ya. And then maybe you get really close. You get really close with that person. Like you're really like emotionally close with that person. And then maybe later on you get married. Married. It doesn't start up here because this is, remember, this is husband and wife, but kind of like where your signing space is right here, kind of like by your shoulders. You just kind of like married. You get married. Oh, maybe before you get married, maybe it makes it official and he proposes and you guys are engaged. Okay, so the E here, engaged, engaged. It's kind of like a little circle on the top of the hand it's normally to the left hand, because normally that's where the rings are worn. It's engaged. And then they become your fiance. 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 So it's engaged plus person. And so it's fiance. Now you may notice why I use this as person instead of this as person. This is kind of more of the more formal way of signing person, and then this is kind of more informal, but it's also a little bit easier and quicker to be able to sign it this way as well. So, but this also means person, but it's more for describing like a kind of person versus like the actual word person. Like I did with like neighbor, like a close person, neighbor. So that if hopefully that makes sense. So this is your fiance, and then you get married. Sometimes relationships kind of they don't do so well. You could say that you broke up. So this was together, and so but this is to break up. So it's kind of like you're making not quite C hands, but kind of hands like this where you're kind of like cupping something and then you spread it apart. So this is separate or you break up. I've seen break up, so it's like kind of separate and then UP. It's like break up, and that kind of gets a little bit muddled. So it's just kind of easier to kind of say break up, broke up. You can say that maybe there was a fight that happened. This is kind of like a verbal fight, or you argue with somebody. This is to battle, and hopefully it didn't come to that point when it comes to a fight, but this is kind of, this sign right here is kind of more describing for if there was like a really big blow up, like a really bad verbal argument. So it's so it's you're kind of tapping, kind of using your fingertips to tap at the palm over here from dominant to here to your non-dominant, and you just kind of like that. So it's tapping and then clapping. So it's but you also want to express that it was really bad. It was bad. So then there was argue, and then you can also say that you went your separate ways. Separate ways. So it's like your one finger and then kind of both of them together, palms down, and you kind of like split it. We went our separate ways. Went our separate ways. Sometimes if you do get married, sometimes it does happen where you may get divorced. Hopefully it never comes to that point for you. My prayer is that it doesn't. But this is to divorce. So this was dating. This is dating. But then for divorce, it's kind of pointed down. And kind of like where you see where it's down for separate, to go separate ways. It's like that. But it's kind of like splitting or divorced. Divorced. Another word that I did forget to mention before is if someone is actually young, or old. So maybe you have like my grandma is old. My cousin, she's young. Okay, so old is kind of like grabbing like the beard and kind of straggling it down, like old. And you kind of use like your whole fist, old. And then young is kind of like you're being very lively, like you're using your fingertips to kind of brush up your shoulders. Young, young. All right. So lots of different signs you could be able to use that. You can also incorporate these for these types of example sentences with like the family members that we had talked about before. So you can say, for example, with the type relationships, like I am just falling in love with you. You know, that, like, I am just falling in love with you. That's a good way to describe it. Another one you can say, like, maybe for how many years your parents have been married for. For example, for me, I can say that my parents, two of them, have been married for 35 years. This is years. So you just kind of take, like, your dominant hand kind of like comes around. Like, this is a year. Year. Okay. So you just kind of like, almost kind of like grabbing air, or it's almost like the earth revolving around the sun, but in the vertical way. So this is a year. Okay. So I'll speed that up again. So my parents, two of them, married for 35 years. Okay. Another example, you can say that my sister and I, like the two of us. So two of us. So if you're talking about the person in particular, like my sister, it's kind of like pointing to them and to me. So instead of doing this, it's the two of us. And so we're kind of pointing to each other. The two of us are close, close, close. So I'll do that again. My sister and I, two of us, are close, close. Another example sentence you can use, you can say, my cousins, they all just argue. Okay. Another one you can be able to describe about your family heritage, or maybe like describing about your family, or like how you came to be. I can say, like, for me, I'll say, like, my parents got together for a long time, later on got married, and had 4 children. So here's 4, since I described about 4 children, I am the oldest. Okay? Now maybe for you, maybe your parents had 2 children, so you could say that you are the oldest or the youngest. Okay? And then maybe if you wanted to describe about like the different like yourself or the different siblings that you have, you can be able to describe their age, where they live, names, whatever. So that finishes up for this session that we had done. Like I said, I'm really, really sorry. I'm so sorry that it's taken me so long to be able to put this together. It's been in the back of my head to do it for a long time. It's just been so chaotic, and I'm so sorry. I really want to try to be able to do better at this, and be able to kind of give my knowledge to you about it. But sometimes life happens and things get crazy, and I really appreciate you being so understanding and patient with me. Oh, totally forgot. Bonus time! Bonus time! We learned, even though this was back in December 11th, I think, when we actually did this. We actually learned some bonus words about Christmas. I know it's kind of sad that we couldn't really use it at that time to put a video together for that, but like I said, crazy stuff. So there are 3 ways to be able to describe Christmas that I've seen. So you can take like C, the letter C, and this is the sign for day. But for Christmas, it's kind of like this, Christmas. Okay. I've also seen it where like you're kind of like putting like a sash on almost, so like Christmas. And I've also seen it where people would be signing Merry Christmas. So instead of saying Merry Christmas, you can say Merry Christmas. So MC. Okay? Merry Christmas. We learned also about the winter time. Winter. This is the season for winter. So like you have fists and it's kind of cold. You kind of shake a little bit. And your facial expressions could be able to tell about the temperature. This is the sign for temperature. That's all. It evolves with fever for temperature, like body temperature, and also describes about what's going on outside. Um, so the temperature kind of like shows your facial expressions. Like right now, we kind of have a pretty cool winter time, but maybe later on it's gonna be freezing. Get it? So you see the difference with that? Like, oh, pretty good, or oh, it's so cold. All right. So then we had actually today, which hasn't happened in a while, we've actually had some snow coming down. Not see, remember how I did flirty over here, but we're just kind of letting it cascade down, really gentle, nice and snow, and also your facial expressions and the speed of how fast the snow falls is a deterrent to describing that as well. So we had snow comes down. It was really nice and gentle. Or a snowstorm. It was just coming and coming. So you also want to make sure you wiggle your fingers. So it's just been coming and coming and coming. We got buckets and buckets and buckets of snow. We also learned about cactus. Very different from what we've been learning about when it comes to the wintertime. So cactus I've seen, I think it's to kind of describe it with like the different shape of it. So I've seen cactus like this, where you have the number 4 on your dominant hand, and you're kind of holding your non-dominant hand in an A shape to kind of do this. Cactus. And it's like these are the spikes onto the cactus. And I imagine that this is the type of cactus that's really short, kind of squat looking, almost like a bulbous kind of shape, like more shorter. And then I've also seen it where it's like this, where it's like the number 1 hand on the non-dominant, and you're kind of pointing to here. See that? So I would imagine these are kind of more like the taller cactuses that you describe. So cactus and cactus. Okay? And then we also learned about how maybe you might get sick. Really sick. I know I was really sick. Ugh. So your middle fingers are kind of more pointed out from your hand, and my ring fingers always just naturally go along with my middle. That's just how my hands are. So if it looks really fancy, I don't do it that way naturally. I don't do that on purpose. It's just this is how it naturally goes. I'm just weird like that. So your middle fingers are kind of more pointed out from your hand. Okay. So then your dominant will go towards like the top of your head, and then the middle one will the non-dominant goes towards your sternum. So this is sick. I'm really sick. Ugh, sick. And there were a lot of different Christmas signs that I did learn, which were actually really cool. And I learned it from another channel on YouTube that I will put the link in for it, because there were a lot of signs that she incorporated that I just don't have time for in here. But they were really cool to be able to learn about them. But I hope you can be able to learn about them as well. And it wasn't just necessarily for Christmas. It was also a lot of like wintertime kind of signs, like what you would do if you were playing outside in the snow. So those were really cool to kind of refresh my memory with, which I will, like I said, I will put that in the description. But I really, really hope that you actually had a lot of fun time being able to enjoy this with me for today. I will be hopefully getting into the schedule to do the video chats to kind of do the next session soon. Haven't set a date yet, but I will be doing that relatively soon. But have fun learning, and I will post a short video with everything kind of shortened up with this. No descriptions, but to kind of maybe help you with practicing, so it's a little bit more quicker. But I love y'all, and I hope you all have been had a great holiday, Christmas, Happy New Year, and hopefully that this year of 2021 is going to be much better than before. Love y'all.